I got lights. Welcome back to my channel, everyone. My name is Alan McNatt, if you don't know me. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for everyone who watched the last video. Hopefully there's a lot more to come. But for now, let's get into my review of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is Quentin Tarantino's epic love letter to old Hollywood. It follows the story of Rick Dalton and Cliff Booth, the actor and stuntman duo, as they kind of just go about their life in 1960s Hollywood, and as they kind of realize their place in the world and their careers as they are in that time. The plot is pretty vague from that point forward. A big factor in it is the backdrop of the Charles Manson murders. So if you don't know much about those, I would read up on it a little bit. It kind of helped give you some context for the film and kind of let you know what was coming a little bit. I saw this movie a few months back, I guess it was in July, with my fiance, and I recently saw it again, and my score and my opinion of it has gotten a little bit better since then. Initially I was very disappointed in the film overall. I just had I had pretty high expectations for it, considering it's Tarantino, top 5 director of all time in my opinion. But this movie just, again, it still disappointed me a little bit. It's gotten a little bit better, like I said, but there were parts of this movie that I really did like and really loved watching, and then there's parts of this movie that are just a chore to watch and really just drag and don't move the story whatsoever. With that, let's go ahead and just get into the things I did like about this movie. The best thing about this film is Rick and Cliff's relationship and their on-screen bromance that they have. Both of them are played perfectly by Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt. Specifically in Leonardo DiCaprio, I think this is one of his best roles and probably the best acting I've seen this year. I say that as a biased Leo fan. Leo is one of my favorite actors of all time, and I've seen almost every one of his films, even The Beach. But I think his performance is the most noteworthy here. I think it's the one most deserving of an Oscar if both him and Brad Pitt were to be nominated. There's a lot of performances of Leo acting as an actor, and I think that's one of the hardest things to do in Hollywood. I mean, I don't know anything about acting, to be fair. I haven't acted since the 7th grade in the production of Murder Most Foul in my 7th grade theater class. But, I mean, I think that sounds really challenging, acting as an actor, and especially in the scenes where he's having to mess up and kind of show that he's fading as an actor in the movie. So I think all around, I think Leo's performance as a whole really brings this movie afloat for me, and that's the thing I took away from as my favorite thing about this film. Next thing I want to get to is the production design in this movie is immaculate. This is Tarantino's most expensive film, and you can really tell when you see the driving shots and the big wide shots of Hollywood. The transformation that he puts on the strip is just amazing. It really brings you in. It makes you think like you're in 1969 Hollywood, and for a film to do that, it's really impressive. For everything from the set, the costumes, even the actual movie sets they're filming on just look incredible, and that's something I can really appreciate. And also there are some scenes of like Leonardo DiCaprio in a 1960s movie or 1960s TV shows, and it just looks amazing. And those are the parts of the movie that I really did enjoy, and I think Tarantino should be applauded for when you think about his attention to detail that he puts into his movies and the production design as a whole in this movie. So let's just go ahead and talk about the ending. I really did like the ending. I think that's a thing that you're going to hear across a lot of different platforms, is the ending is the best part of the movie. I think it's definitely the most entertaining part of the movie, but I don't know if it's necessarily earned from a plot standpoint. But I'll give it to everyone that the last 30 minutes is a wild ride. It's crazy. It has all the Tarantino-isms, you would say, but it's not my favorite of the Tarantino climaxes. But it's a good ending, and it leaves you on a good note. However, it just didn't feel earned, and I wouldn't say it's my favorite part of the entire movie. Lastly, I just think there are plenty of scenes in this movie that are really fun to watch. The scene of the movie for me is with Leonardo DiCaprio's character and this young girl actor. His name is Julia Butters. They're sitting on the Hollywood set. They're getting ready for their shoot, and they're kind of just realizing both where they are in their careers as they're reading their separate books. And Leonardo DiCaprio is starting to realize, oh my gosh, I'm not a top tier actor anymore. I'm the heel here, and that's the worst thing to be in Hollywood. So I think, and the emotion he shows on his face and through that scene is just truly incredible. And the acting that Tarantino gets out of Julia Butters, who's, I think she's like 8, or she might be 11, who knows. But I think it was truly incredible, and it was awesome to watch those interactions. Then immediately following that scene, those two actors have a scene together in their TV show they're filming, and it's one of the best parts of the film. And it's kind of cool to see Leonardo to go from just this down and out actor to just on top of his game in the acting world that he's in. So that was probably the scene of the movie for me, and that's just something I really liked about it. And with that, let's go ahead and just get into the negatives, of which I have many. For starters, this movie is just way too long. I think you could take it out like 20 to 30 minutes and have the same exact movie. There's 10 to 15 minutes of just Leo and Brad Pitt driving across Hollywood. There's plenty of time of just people watching their own films and TV shows that could be taken out. I don't think those scenes added too much to the plot or the film as a whole, so I don't understand why they were left in. I think it must have been a Tarantino thing. This is his baby, his, pride and joy. He wanted it made how he wanted it made, so can't fault him for that. But I think at the end of the day, there's just way too much wasted time in this movie, and that added to a really long runtime of it's almost 3 hours. I think Tarantino is going for a lot of artsy-fartsy things in this movie, and don't get me wrong, I love all that stuff. However, I think in this case, it basically turned from artsy-fartsy into just fartsy. Next thing I want to touch on is Margot Robbie. I think her character as Sharon Tate was just completely underused, and that was a real shame for the movie, to be honest. I might be getting a little too picky, but I mean, when you see a movie that's kind of revolving around the Charles Manson murders, you kind of expect Sharon Tate to be in it, but she really wasn't in it that much. So that's just a knock I have against the movie, unfortunately. Kind of like I said earlier, I don't think the dialogue in this film was Tarantino's best when you compare it to his other films like Pulp Fiction, Inglourious Basterds, Reservoir Dogs. There's just plenty of two characters talking in this movie, and 9 times out of 10 in a Tarantino movie, I'm going to be enthralled and just love it and be able to sit through that and have no complaints. But it just didn't happen with this movie. The dialogue was not there for me, and that mixed with the lack of, a narrative, a lack of a story, it really took away a lot of points from me and left me feeling really disappointed when I walked out of this movie. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get to the score of the movie. So when you take into account the great performances by Leo, the great performance by Brad, and just the lack of a story and lack of good dialogue, I think this movie lands at about a 68 out of 100 for me. And that score has gone up a little bit more for me since I saw it the first time. I just think overall it was kind of a disappointment when it comes to Tarantino films. It didn't hit that high expectation that I had for it, unfortunately. But I do still recommend it. I think everyone should see this movie. If you see it, you're going to love talking about it. I love talking about it. Me and all my friends love talking about it. And that's all I have for me. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to have another video coming out later this week. Love for you to watch, subscribe, and comment. Have a good one. Thanks to Gig'em.